So I'll open our meeting for Monday the 9th of November. Welcome everybody. We are still meeting on Zoom as a result of COVID-19 and I'd like to advise everyone that we are recording this and it is also being live streamed to the community via the City of Hobart YouTube channel. Everyone is present except Alderman Sexton, who is on a leave of absence. Just beginning as we always do with our acknowledgement of country. So in recognition of the deep history and culture of this place, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which the City of Hobart was built. I acknowledge the determination and resilience of the Palawa people of Tasmania, who have survived invasion and dispossession and continue to maintain their identity, culture and rights. I recognise the value of continuing Aboriginal knowledge and cultural practice and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We had a meeting on the 26th of October. The minutes have been circulated. Would someone like to raise their hands to move those? Councillor Dudda's moving those and I need a seconder. Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you for that. And would anyone like to vote against those minutes? Please raise your hand. No hands raised, so they've been passed unanimously. Transfer of agenda items. Would anyone like to transfer any of the items? No. Good. Communication from the chairperson. I do have communication, some sad news about the passing of Mr. Tony Coleman and Mr. Barry Holmes. They are two gentlemen that were very important and significant for the City of Hobart, and I'll just explain some information about both these gentlemen. So Mr. Tony Coleman recently passed away, and he was instrumental in the restoration of the City of Hobart's heritage trams and undertook the refurbishment on the timber work. Tony renewed tram number 118, single deck tram number 39, and the double decker tram number 17. His expertise and passion enabled the city's tram fleet to be faithfully restored to its original condition. And on behalf of the council, I'd like to extend our sincere condolences to Tony's family at this sad time. I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Barry Holmes. Barry was a greatly valued and long-term employee of the City of Hobart. He commenced in 1981 and retired in 2014. Throughout his 33 years with the council, he held numerous positions with the City Planning Division. And throughout his career, Barry contributed greatly to planning in Hobart. He had the foresight in identifying the potential of the South Hobart Rivulet as a riparian reserve and pedestrian link from the city to the mountain. He took some of the task of delivering the Sullivan's Cove planning scheme in 1997, and his final milestone achievement before retiring was drafting the interim Hobart planning scheme. Barry retired in October 2014 and left a great legacy of positive planning outcomes for the City of Hobart. However, his greatest legacy has been the numerous planners that he has mentored and nurtured over the years to take on consultancy and leadership roles in the profession. Barry made a tremendous contribution to planning in our beautiful city, and on behalf of the council, I extend our sincere condolences, thoughts and prayers to Barry's family at this sad time. As a mark of respect to both of these gentlemen, I would like that we observe a minute's silence now. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me, Lord Mayor, before we can continue, normally I wonder if I could suggest that we send a letter of condolences to both families of Mr. Coleman and to Mr. Holmes. I think we don't need a motion, I don't think, for that, but I wonder if that could be confirmed that will be done, and probably enclose a copy of the minutes of this meeting showing that we had a moment of silence for both gentlemen.
Thank you, Alderman Briscoe. That's a good suggestion. And General Manager, you're happy to take that forward?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. That will be done, and thank you for that. We'll certainly pass that on.
Sorry, Alderman Thomas, yes?
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'm just wondering, and Alderman Zuko might be able to help us because he's been involved with the trams for many years. But I'm wondering, given the effort the gentleman, Tony Coleman, did in relation to this one single tram, and it's something that could be lost as we go forward a few months, but I wonder whether or not a very small plaque might be able to be put into that tram, General Manager, in recognition of the effort, because it's a hell of a job to bring that from what that particular tram was. It's just a nice way to acknowledge the family as well.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Tony's contribution to the restoration of the trams was significant, as the Lord Mayor alluded to in her words, and I think that would be entirely appropriate, Lord Mayor, that we do that. Again, it probably doesn't need a resolution, but we will certainly action that.
Lord Mayor, that was also suggested for the late Alderman Darlene Haig. So potentially they worked very closely together. I actually went on many trips with them both. So considering that we also gave thought to having a plaque for Alderman Haig, maybe a dual plaque might be the way to go with it, because they both worked very closely together on all the trams.
Okay, thank you for all of those suggestions, and I'll leave it to the General Manager to take those forward. If he needs to report back to us, I'm sure he'll do that through a memo or a report if he needs to. So thanks everyone for that. All right, we'll now move on to notification of council workshops. There haven't been any since we met last. Public question time. I think there is one, and the General Manager is going to read that out.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a question from Mr. Andrew Swan. He's provided notice of his question. But Lord Mayor, as the question involves staffing and operational issues, I think it's appropriate that I respond rather than yourself. So if you're happy with that. Mr. Swan, Lord Mayor, asks 4 questions. The first question was, there was an internal reorganisation within Council's various business units in 2019 and 2020. What was the total cost of this exercise, and how many people left the Council as part of this process? The second question, Lord Mayor, was how many staff have left Council during the 2017-2018, 2018-2019 and 2019-2020 financial years, and what was the total cost? Third question, what is the total amount of workers' compensation claims and costs in workers' compensation premiums during the above years? And the final question, Lord Mayor, how many bullying and or harassment claims have been lodged in the above years and the cost of these claims? My response, Lord Mayor, is that the answers do require a rather detailed response, and I think it's best that I take these questions on notice and provide Mr. Swan with a response in writing in due course. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, moving on to item 6, petitions. I don't think we have any petitions. Consideration of supplementary items. We have 2 items. If someone would like to move those. Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Harvey. Would anyone like to vote against the supplementary items? Raise your hand. Okay, that's passed unanimously. Item 8 is just indications of pecuniary or conflicts of interest. Would anyone like to indicate any interest in any items on the open agenda? There's no hands up. Oh, yes, Alderman Brackus.
Apologies, Lord Mayor. I believe I need to declare an interest in item 9.4, Burnett Street one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're now moving on to City Planning Committee and item 9.1. So we are now acting as a planning authority. I'm going to hand over to Deputy Lord Mayor, Chair of the Planning Committee, to introduce item 9.1.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is for a fire trail and associated works from Nicholas Drive to the access road up to Dorney House. So move that.
Seconded by Alderman Barakis.
Lord Mayor, this fire trail is quite important to access that particular part of the council land. It traverses from a right of way in relation to off Nicholas Drive and goes up to the Porters Hill at its southern end. It goes through the land has a number of species and communities of native species, one being in particular Eucalyptus globulus and dry forest vegetation. And the conditions relating to this application include stormwater and include a Part 5 agreement to ensure that there's slope stability, but importantly maintains that community of E. globulus. So there were no representations in relation to this, and obviously a requirement really of our city for fire protection.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak about this item? There's no raised hands. Would anyone like to vote against this item? There's no raised hands, so that is passed unanimously. Now item 9.2, and I understand Deputy Lord Mayor's asked Alderman Briscoe to introduce this item.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Deputy. Yes, I move the motion for approval on the books.
I need a seconder. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a few words. I know the media and other comments have been mainly focused around a sign that's on top of the building. However, this proposal it is a very important development because it's a change from general retail and hire, previously a photography shop and laboratories, to 5 apartments on the existing 1st to 5th floor with an extension to create a 6th floor. The 6th floor extension is towards the back of the building and doesn't affect the facade of the building. The basement from Kemp Street will be converted to storage compartments for the 5 apartments, as well as bike and rubbish storage, as well as the main lobby and entrance to lift and stairwell. And the ground floor on Elizabeth Street side retains a commercial tenancy. The apartments will be 3 bedroom ones and 2 with 2 bathrooms and 1 apartment per floor, extending the length of the building and wrapping around the lift shaft and stairwell. Now there's quite a few details, but the details of it is in the report for our planning committee. So I won't dwell too much on that. Most of the committee, in fact, I think all the committee had a tour of this derelict building, an incredibly derelict building, except for the ground floor, which is a modern retail shop. I do believe the developers will set a trend, a really good precedent for the city, where there are many buildings in the city of heritage values like this that have disused floors, and this will be hopefully a vanguard for many buildings, heritage buildings in the city, to be reused. And what reuse that this has is a fantastic reuse. 5 floors of residential apartments in a heritage building whose facade will not change, except right up the top, a removal of a sign. Now, the applicant we'll be replacing the sign with an exact replica out a bit from the building, but it would allow light into the top apartment. It is necessary because there's no other way of getting a light and outlook into that top apartment. Now I know we had a fair bit of discussion at committee about whether or not if you can't see a heritage item, does it make it any less heritage? We all agree that no, if you can't see a heritage item, it's still heritage. However, we've got to balance the great use of this reuse of this building with what small item of heritage that we're losing. Around the building, there's about 5 Kodak signs, which are quite visible on both sides and on the front, and there's a neon light. Up the top, which is the contentious sign, is very hard to see from the city, from the mall, and can't be seen at any oblique angle because there's been a mall built in front of it and with mature trees that obscure it as well. You can't at eye level see the building. You have to strain up and a fair distance away in front of it before you see the sign. However, the applicant is willing to make that allowance by having a sign that replicates that sign, but now enables a modern apartment to go in behind that 5th floor. So whilst it's regrettable that a name of a building is not going to stay in its original position or fabric, I think the benefit to the city outweighs any small decrease in a heritage for this building. I know Alderman Zuko may have something to say about this because he has been a great advocate of inner city living and reusing upper levels of retail shops, the heritage retail shops. 30
seconds, Alderman Briscoe.
Thank you. That's probably all I need to say at this stage, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next hand up was Alderman Thomas.
Thank you. Look, it's a bit of history here. They're fascinating buildings, the Kodak buildings. They were always narrow like this. In fact, I was not involved, but I went along and watched the demolition of the Brisbane one, which is right opposite the Brisbane GPO. So they were always very centrally located. And this one seems to have maybe been a second level store because the original, most of them around Australia had these most fancy lifts with the old sign that, you know, had a moving, like New York with a moving sign from floor 1 to floor 8 and very, very, very fancy lift controls. I noticed that this lift might have either been changed or was of a lower grade for Hobart. But look, it's only one question, and I think it may appear in the report somewhere. And normally I wouldn't think it's would be any significance at all to have the neon sign retained. But of course, the neon sign is in those classic Kodak colours as well. So my question to the director through you, Lord Mayor, is the sign, the neon sign, which is in good condition, is that to remain, please?
Mr. Noy?
Yes, through you, Lord Mayor. No, it isn't intended to be retained at this point in time.
Well, I think that's a deficit, Lord Mayor and elected officials, because it's part and parcel of that fabric. It's indelible to that site as the colour yellow, to be quite honest. But I'm not quite sure whether we can do anything about it at this point. But it would be a real loss.
Is that a further question?
I guess it's whether or not through the director we can make it a condition. It's not going to affect the fabric of the building. It's below, so the actual apartments, it's below the area that's being the top floor that's having the significant treatment. I can't see why it can't stay. And in fact, it's, you know, that was very part of their heritage, having that particular type of sign outside.
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. A couple of things to consider. One, it certainly wasn't perceived as being a significant heritage element, but I do take the point that you do raise. Secondly, however, it may have been a consideration for the outlook from the apartments as retaining those neon sign elements. So that might have been a contributing factor by the applicant to have them removed. But there's nothing to say that a further advice clause could be included, that consideration be given to retaining the neon sign on the facade, or if not retained, displayed maybe elsewhere within the public accessible areas of the building. So that might be an alternative, Lord Mayor.
Yes, thanks. Thanks very much, Director. Potentially, look, if it can't be outside, potentially within the retail space down below, but it shouldn't be lost. That's for sure.
Okay, so that's is that an amendment, Alderman Thomas?
I can put it as an amendment, depending whether the Director needs it. There definitely needs to be an advice given to the applicant.
Yes, through you, Lord Mayor, that could be included as an advice clause, but would have to be moved, I assume.
Happy to move that, Lord Mayor.
Okay. So that when people are making comments, they might like to comment on that amendment too, but we'll take that separately before we vote on the item. So next hand up is,
if I may, please.
sorry, what was that?
Just a point of clarification, please.
Yes.
Was that did Alderman Thomas move that as advice? Because I just want to get that clear, because that's what the Director was suggesting.
Yes, advice. It will be advice, but it still needs to be moved as an amendment.
Thank you.
Okay. So Alderman Barakis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And Lord Mayor, just to address the what was suggested by Alderman Thomas, if it's being moved as advice, I've got no particular issue with it. I think Councillor Coates, put it best on a previous item a couple of months ago. The best way to maintain heritage in our city is to use it and to ensure that it is usable. At the moment, I think anybody that did see the site in question saw the condition it was in and saw what happens when these places don't get used. And if some adjustments and some slight renovations that might affect some parts of the building, ensure that it's used for years to come, ensure that it's properly maintained and better appreciated for years to come. I think in the scheme of things, I think it actually is to the benefit of the broader heritage site. So look, I'm very supportive of this. I'm supportive of the designs of how they're wanting to do it internally and the additions that they're making. I think it is very sensitive to the area, sensitive to the building itself, which is, in all fairness, a significant building for our city. And I do think as well, and I'd acknowledge the work that Alderman Zirko has done over the years in calling for better utilisation of those shop tops in the CBD. If this is successful and it proves to be implemented successfully, it'd be a fantastic proof of concept to all those other underutilised spots in the city that can be internally renovated, I guess, to be better utilised. So look, I think this is a great application, and I'd hope it does get passed by this council. And I think that this would be the best way to ensure that those sort of important heritage parts of the inner CBD are able to be preserved into the future. So look, I'll echo what was said by Alderman Briscoe, and I'll acknowledge again Alderman Zirko's work, and I'd encourage everybody to support this one.
Thank you, Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just have a clarification. Is it possible to add another advice clause to this?
It's possible, Councillor Dutta, probably. It depends on the advice clause. So you might just want to outline what your thinking is.
Thank you. Craig has a copy of this advice clause that I have. I would appreciate if you can put this on, please.
Okay, so this is a further amendment.
It simply says that the advice clause is the original codex sign from the front of the building is to be retained and permanently placed so that it is visible to the public in a location to be finalized through discussions with the Director of City Planning.
Okay. So, Councillor Dudder, you're talking about not the neon ones, you're talking about the brick, the painted one?
Right. The masonry.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be placed somewhere.
Okay. Mr. Noy, did you want to comment on that one at all, or just take that as another amendment?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I think this was clearly a suggestion from the Councillor Dutta, and I, in terms of how that might be achieved, might be challenging, but certainly not necessarily impossible. So its retention and display elsewhere in the building might be an attractive addition, but how that would be achieved, I think that would be a matter for the applicant to and engineer to advise.
Okay, Councillor Dudder, have you got a seconder for your amendment? Or is there a seconder for Councillor Dudder's amendment? I just need this the screen to be taken down so I can see if there's hands up. So I think Councillor Sherlock is seconding that amendment. And would you like to speak to?
Yes,
to this
thank you, Lord Mayor. I am usually very sensitive to heritage matters. In this particular case, there are three issues for me, three clauses that I need to deal with. Firstly, the staff have not approved this, and I quite understand their inclination and their reasoning behind this. And I think they have, to a large extent, a case. However, on the contrary, there is an arguable case against it as well to present an alternative. And when I look at, first of all, clause E1371P, the demolition must not result to the loss of significant fabric unless all of the following are satisfied. And when I look at all of the four elements, A to D, I am quite satisfied that the test and the provision has been met. And then secondly, the second grounds for disapproval was based on the Signs Code E1372P1. And again, there are a number of elements from A to I. Now, while it is difficult, as it were, sometimes to totally support my argument here, hence that advice I'm putting forth, that if it is taken away, it can be located in a position where it can be seen. And that will then meet the rational argument of this particular clause, and it'll meet and be satisfied. And thirdly, the third clause, which is also very important in the holistic debate of this heritage code, is E1372 P1 to P4. And when you look at those P1, P2, P3, and 4, I don't have the time to read it here now, but I'm sure the elected members are aware of it. For the sake of the public, I need to simply refer to them, that they are all satisfied. And therefore, for this particular matter, I'm quite happy and satisfied that the clauses are met, and I would support this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If Alderman Thomas, Barakis and Councillor Dutta could just clear their hands. So I've got a clean screen of hands. So I've got so Alderman Barakis, have you got a question, or did you speak? No. Yes, you spoke. Where is Councillor Alderman Barakis?
He's no longer at the meeting by the looks of it.
Okay. Well, look, I'll go to Deputy Lord Mayor for now.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'll start with some questions just in relation to this. So we've already covered that the neon Kodak sign is likely to go. Through you to Mr. Noy, in relation to the openings at the front of the building but facing up the mall and down the mall, so on either side of the buildings, can you just explain to me whether those apertures would be would pass the test in an adjoining, like a party wall, in relation to any subsequent buildings?
Mr. Noy?
Yeah, look, I think because the openings are onto an open deck, and the deck is open to the light above, it doesn't, as I understand, does not, is not contrary to any building code requirements, and are allowed for. So in a general sense, they don't contravene a building code requirement.
Thank you. Subsequent question. So the signage on the side of the building will need to be removed and repainted according to your requirements?
Well, there's a condition suggested that was supported by committee and on the council agenda that would require that those Kodak signs to be repainted, clear of those openings.
And my final question is, this obviously had quite strong reasons for refusal based on heritage. How defendable do you think that might be at the tribunal?
Yeah, look, clearly we've had both the council officers and a heritage consultant review the matter, and they feel clearly that the proposal should be refused because of those provisions. So clearly the officers are of the view that those recommendations can be defended before the appeal tribunal. Having said that, I do acknowledge that there is scope to interpret those provisions consistent with the recommendation of committee, but that's not supported by the officers. Thank
you. And just to say, I was the only committee member who voted against this or voted for reasons for refusal. I think we have an iconic building here, and whilst there are many great things about this application, you know, I think it's a wonderful reuse, and you know, the motion that Alderman Briscoe has moved contains many conditions in relation to retaining some of the history, but it's that masonry that masonry sign of Kodak House put in there in 1929, which is a significant example of that sort of architecture in the interwar period. So we've had really strong advice from the consultant heritage architect, from our heritage architect, that this is the deal breaker in relation to this. And whilst we all, well, a number of us, I know you, Lord Mayor, had gone to look at the building, no doubt other elected members who weren't on committee had a look as well, and I appreciate the applicant providing that opportunity, but we have clear advice that this is not passing the test in relation to how we should look after this heritage building. There is, as I said, so many good things about it, even though the height is greater than, I think it's about 16% or so outside of the building envelope at Kemp Street. Those concessions can be made, but to me, Kodak House and that sign in its entirety is really what we should be trying to do. And so I'll foreshadow the original motion from the council officers for recommendation on refusal. And I think Craig has that should we need to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Zuko?
Yes. I have some questions. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, I have some questions first. My first question is through you to the director in regards to our famous red awning building. Was that recommended by heritage officers for refusal?
So, Mr. Knight?
Yes, I believe so.
Could the appropriate officer direct me to two sections of the planning scheme? One is the common sense section of the planning scheme, please. Oh, okay. There's no section of common sense plan. Could someone else possibly direct me to the pub test of the planning scheme?
Alderman Zuko, I think questions are meant to be not really giving an imputation.
Right. I sincerely apologise, Lord Mayor. I was sort of going on a little bit further on the red awnings. I'll start my debate now, Lord Mayor. Quite obviously, the red awnings were something of a controversy in this city, which were recommended for refusal and went to tribunal and overturned a tribunal. So heritage is really something that that is also a perception and what is and what isn't heritage. This in itself, yes, is a heritage building, as stated by the Deputy Lord Mayor, and that said that this sign was put up in 1929. So also was the use of all the upper story buildings. I have been fighting for nearly 15 years to get upper city developments right across the CBD. We need to get more people living in the city, and I've pushed this for constantly. Insofar as I even came up with an idea for a walkway right around the central CBD to assist a number of properties around the CBD to actually have access. I've even put up motions, Lord Mayor, so that we look at the building code to come and adapt some of these buildings. What we need to look at here, as Lord Mayor, is a 1929 sign, which is very, very important, but it cannot be seen. And remember, when that building was built in 1929, the city wasn't in its current state and current form. You really have to look up to see that sign. What we need to do is go, let's look at the small amount of heritage that is being asked to be changed here in a sign at the highest level in that street versus 5 new inner city apartments. This could be the start of some further redevelopment of our upper story developments if we at least provide some sort of leeway and what I consider common sense and the pub test. Because at the end of the day, the red awnings are a prime example of the pub test and common sense that prevails to ensure that we can still have our heritage and we can still develop our city. Now, I don't disagree with the suggestion by Councillor Dutta and Alderman Thomas in respect of providing advice to the applicant in regards to those signs. Who knows? They could even go on display on the inner part of the building or something. But as long as it's only advice, it goes to the developer to work with the director. And if we go to the Myer site and we look at the hotel that's been built at the Myer site, and we see as we walk into the building all the on display there is all the diggings from that site. So there are other means and ways of displaying heritage to look at what was there in the past. But here what we should be seriously considering is not the small amount of heritage that's being supposedly destroyed, because I don't believe it is being destroyed. It is what we are doing for a building that could remain in its current state, in its current form, forever and a day, if we as elected members don't use what I consider the common sense pub test scenario when we have to look at heritage. Because again, I'll keep on repeating, the red awnings were a prime example of something that this council refused and went to tribunal, and there was a resolution at the tribunal in respect to those red awnings. So I urge each and every elected member on this council that let's start this redevelopment of our upper stories by approving this one here. And hopefully this may flow on to a number of other potential developers or other persons who have the upper stories that are considering some form of development, but maybe looking at this one here and waiting for this. I urge each and every elected member to support this, because this is all about a livable city. If we want a livable city, we need to have more people living there. And if we can adapt some of these upper story sites, it will assist the city. And just in closing, Lord Mayor, when I talked about the building code, we need to sort of look at the building code and see if we can adapt the building code. And I've discussed this with the director many times, that some of the stairwells leading up to some of these buildings are narrow. But in the day they were built, they were acceptable, Lord Mayor. What we need to look at is, and potentially, I've said this publicly, that some of these upper story buildings that have narrow stairwells, we could actually redevelop them for the under 30 market. So, Lord Mayor, we need to expand. We need to use the pub test and the common sense test, and the red awnings is a prime example.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, firstly, we use the planning scheme, not the pub test. We don't sit around on our stools and decide how we plan the city. It's based on science. It's based on planning schemes. There are always exceptions to the rule where we decide that we agree with the development that is recommended for refusal. And this is one of those cases. And I'll be supporting the recommendation to allow this proposal to go ahead, because I think it's a good proposal in a good location. And the loss of the masonry sign above the building is a sad loss, but I'm prepared to compromise to get this derelict building. And let's just keep in mind that this building's been neglected and derelict for 18 years. So the owner hasn't had the opportunity or the inclination to do anything with this building until this particular moment in time, when property values are probably at the sweet spot when it's time to do things. I think all of us over the years have said we would like to see the shop tops developed in Hobart. So there's no monopoly on that idea. We've all agreed to this over the years, and we've seen shop top development occurring in Hobart. There's a number of examples that already exist. There's a nice restaurant in Liverpool Street that's developed a rooftop garden plus another floor. So we're not setting a precedent here by allowing this to go through. So that's not an argument that should be convincing anybody. Shop top development is occurring. It's the right time in history and the right price signals, I think, that people will start to develop their buildings. And I look forward to that continuing into the future as those property values are in the sweet spot that people will want to develop the upstairs. So good on those developers. And I'm really pleased to see this derelict building, or the top floors of this derelict building, come back to life in the next year or so, however long it takes to complete this. I agree with Alderman Thomas that I would like to see the neon sign or that electronic sign on the front of the building retained, and if not retained in situ, then it'd be nice to have it put somewhere where it could remind us, and potentially be reinstated if the owner or whoever purchases the units would like to do so. The masonry sign at the front will be very difficult to remove and place somewhere else. Bricks and render are very hard to remove without breaking anything. So, you know, while I support advice that be attempted, I don't know how practical it is to do that. But what I'll say finally is I'm pleased to see a 5-unit development in the city, central location. It'll add ambience and value to the city. It'll have people living in the city. More people in the city provides more security for all of us. It provides that dynamism that cities need. It'll activate the back laneway as well. So more people in that laneway or using that laneway for you know, rather than just as a thoroughfare, but actually having a purpose to be in the laneway, I think is really important to keep in mind as well. So I'm supportive of it, and I'll be supporting the committee's recommendation to approve.
Thank you. Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I don't want to take up much time. Most of the discussion's already been had. I guess just for the benefit of those that weren't on the committee, and look, I'll foreshadow it. I'll be supporting the recommendation of the committee to approve this development. But look, the question was asked when the developer came forward at the committee, and you know, ultimately, it actually is a more expensive option for them to have to you know, take down and replace the Kodak sign. They had an intention of keeping it as a Kodak building. They saw that as actually a benefit in terms of people living there in the future. So, you know, this isn't an instance where they're just trying to screw over the city and get rid of heritage. It's finding that sort of common middle ground. And look, you know, much like when it comes to installing lifts or, you know, widening so you can fit wheelchairs down buildings, we have to face the fact that the city is full of heritage buildings, but sometimes they do need to be slightly modified and brought up to modern standards to make them useful. And we're probably going to get a lot like this over the years. And I think we just need to strike the right balance. And in this instance, you know, they're clearly not doing it just to trash the heritage of this building, which is as a Kodak building. Look, I know there'll be members of my generation who don't know what Kodak is going forward in the future, but hopefully this thing will stay for the next 100 years to remind them. So look, I'll be voting in favour of the recommendation from the committee. Thanks.
Thank you. So I have 2 amendments. So the first one was from Alderman Thomas, and I need a seconder for Alderman Thomas's amendment, which is advice. Councillor Sherlock. So that's advice on retaining the neon sign either as it is or for display. Would anyone like to vote against that amendment? Please raise your hand. Okay, there's no raised hand, so that's passed unanimously. And I have another amendment, advice on retaining the masonry sign for reuse or display elsewhere. That's moved by Councillor Dutta, second. Oh, I need another seconder for that because Councillor Sherlock, no. Councillor Sherlock, did you just second Alderman Thomas's one? Councillor Ewan is seconding Councillor Dutta's advice amendment. Would anyone like to vote against that other advice amendment? Okay, so there's no raised hands. That's passed unanimously. And now we'll go to the substantive motion. Alderman Briscoe, did you want to sum up?
Yes, please. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just very briefly, just to remind us all, the building is not being demolished. The facade and structure, it will remain. A small aspect fabric, and that is the sign up the top, up the 5th level, is being removed, but being replaced by almost in the same position, a sign that mirrors the current sign. Now, I'm hoping the developer will take on those advices. Certainly, the sign that's there now was not effective. You can see it wasn't effective because of the multitude of signs around the building, big painted on signs as well as the neon sign, which is now a subject of advice clause. The reuse of the building, and I think everyone agrees, is an excellent use of a heritage building, which is derelict at the moment. And like all of us that have been around for a while, we've always supported reuse. Whilst Councillor Harvey did mention there are a few reuses of shop top developments. There hasn't been any major one, and this one I think is a significant one if it gets through tonight, and it will be a catalyst for further shop top development. So I think having inner city residents right in Elizabeth Street, right in the centre of the city, is good for the city. A loss of a small amount of fabric at the top of the building, which no one can see, I don't think will be, well, it's sad, as someone said, but it's not a showstopper. And I don't think it should be a showstopper. And I think whilst Alderman Zuko uses colourful language, like does it pass the pub test or common sense, at the end of the day, we are here to make community views known. And the community view here would be a reuse of a significant heritage building is a great use. And if we have to lose a very small part of fabric, I think we would agree with it, hopefully tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go around and ask for your vote on this item, on the substantive motion that's been amended with those two advice clauses. So Deputy Lord Mayor, how do you vote? Deputy Lord Mayor? I think Deputy Lord Mayor has frozen. So I'll go around to other folks. Alderman Zuko.
For Lord Mayor.
Alderman Briscoe.
For the motion for approval.
Alderman Thomas.
For.
Councillor Harvey.
For.
Alderman Barakis.
For Lord Mayor.
Councillor Dutta.
For.
Councillor Ewan.
For.
Councillor Sherlock.
For.
And Councillor Coates.
For, Lord Mayor.
And I think I'll vote for as well. And I think we seem to have lost the deputy. She dropped out.
Unfortunately, Lord Mayor, we can't record the deputy's vote. So in the absence of that, it is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 9.3. So the deputy's not here, so I might have to ask someone else to introduce this item. So this is 63 Davey Street.
Lord Mayor, usually it would be Alderman Barakis next because he's the only non-chair of the Planning Committee.
Normally, I think it would be me, Lord Mayor, but I would not be moving this as I'd be voting against the recommendation. So I'll gracefully ask that Alderman Briscoe does this one.
If that's okay with you, Lord Mayor, I'll move the motion that's on the books. So I'll reserve my right to speak.
Sure, thank you. And it's been seconded by Councillor Sherlock. I think, so who would like to speak on this? So Deputy Lord Mayor is back. I'll just let you know, Deputy Lord Mayor, that's been moved by Alderman Briscoe, seconded by Councillor Sherlock. But would you like to speak, introduce the item? Or Alderman Briscoe didn't provide much background, so if you could just, if you'd like to say anything on the item now, you can.
I didn't provide any background. I'm very happy that the deputy has come back.
Yes, well, just had a bit of a glitch in technology with a flat battery, Lord Mayor, so I didn't get to vote in that last one. We're up to 63 Davey Street, is that right?
Correct, yes.
Yes, okay. Lord Mayor, you might remember when this came to council a fortnight ago, it was deferred by the majority of council and it was deferred to try and get some better alternative in relation to this application. Now, the applicants came back as the memo from the supplementary agenda, the planning agenda, suggested that the height of the building was reduced to a certain degree, so that it came within the building envelope. However, as the officers recommended before, their position hasn't changed. Most of the reasons for referral were the overall size of the building in contrast to the existing heritage buildings surrounding this. So in effect, the suggestion, as I thought it might be, but we did go through a deferral, has been to refuse this, and that was voted 4-2 at committee as per the officer's original recommendation.
Okay, further discussion? There's no Alderman Braucus.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, we just saw on the previous item that we are able to respectfully vote contrary to what the recommendations of the officers are. As the Deputy Lord Mayor said, this is something that was this did go back and forth between the applicants and the council, and it was deferred for the applicants to try and find a way to get this in a configuration that was more sensitive to the area. And they brought forward something that's within the acceptable solutions for height. And the only thing that it was recommended for refusal on was, as I understand, the heritage provisions. Now, Lord Mayor, this is something, and I know it's been mentioned that this is being compared to the Welcome Stranger application down the road. It is significantly shorter than the Welcome Stranger application, and contrary to what the setting of that one was, it's not on the corner, and the street face is actually set back internally into the block. So the position of it relative to the streetscape and the impact that it has on that main street is much lower. And Lord Mayor, I think once again, it's at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we do have to really start assessing our priorities when we start getting into this discretionary areas. That, you know, what are the pros and cons of approving these developments or rejecting these developments, especially when we're operating within the bounds of our discretions, and what this would contribute to our city by way of housing stock, by way of better utilising this block, I think definitely outweighs the alluded to negatives. I think we do have to be consistent in how we are applying these rules, and I think rather than just be consistent in our voting records, I think we don't want to put this in the same sort of situation as the Macquarie Street application, which I understand is currently in appeals tribunal. It'd be interesting to see how that goes, but we do need to not just be voting against all of these sort of major applications, because they do have an effect on our city, and they do have an effect on people that live in our city. And I think that's something we should be taking seriously as our considerations, especially when we are operating within those discretions. And I understand that many of those heritage discretions have those provisions in there where we do weigh up the loss of heritage with the comparable economic or social or what have you benefits. So these are things that we should be taking into consideration. I think there is actually a consequence in rejecting such applications. But other than that, I'll leave it there. I don't expect that this is something that's going to be approved here tonight, but this will be something I imagine that we'll be testing at the appeals tribunal.
Okay, any further discussion? Would anyone else like to say anything?
A question through to the appropriate officer can give me an answer.
Alderman Zuko.
Yeah, 31 apartments. What would be the rate base on 31 apartments to the city?
General Manager, have you got that information?
Well, I wouldn't want to provide it without some consideration, Lord Mayor, but look, maybe an average of $3,000 per property would be a reasonable assumption.
Okay.
Oh, that helps the bottom line of Hobart City Council over a period of time.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Zuka, did you want to say something, or?
Yes, I just said that would help the bottom line of the Hobart City Council over a period of years.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Again, when I look at this application, there are two questions for me. Whether this development will be good for the city? It will be beneficial economically. Will it be beneficial job-wise? Will it bring about more vibrancy in the city? And the answer is in the positive. Yes, it will. But somehow the other, when I look at the planning scheme, I don't find that criteria. And therefore, I cannot make the decision based on that particular question. Hence, I go to my second question. And the second question is, does this application satisfy the planning scheme? And again, I read, and as in the other one, I voted for, even though the recommendation by the staff was to refuse. In this one here, I find it difficult to go against the staff recommendation, because when I analyze it myself, and each one of us are entitled to analyze it and interpret it the way we want to, and hence use our discretion. And when I use the clauses in here, clause 22.4.1 P1A, it does not make a positive contribution to the streetscape and the townscape pertaining to its height. And therefore, it does not satisfy that particular clause. And then I look at the second clause on which it is refused, 13E.H.2.P1 of the code, the heritage code. The other one was the planning, and this is the heritage code. And again, to me, in my interpretation and judgment, it appears that the proposed development would be somewhat detrimental to the historic cultural significance of the precinct through its design and setting. And then thirdly, clause 22.4.1 a heritage code. Similarly, it is my view that it is deemed that the proposed building would unreasonably dominate and have an adverse effect with regards to the existing building and the cultural heritage and significance through its height. So therefore, I am inclined to, at this stage, unless I hear arguments otherwise, to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And look, again, this is a good example, I think, where the committee system works well. We've obviously got someone who has a good faith approach the city with a proposal to develop this site and put something exciting on there. And they've come to us, and you know, they didn't probably get the outcome they wanted, but what have they done? They haven't packed up their bags, they haven't gone away, they've listened to us, through us, the views of a community, and they've actually agreed to reduce the height. And we heard representations, strong representations from the community that they had genuine concerns about height. And look, that like it or not, we might think 30 metres is way too high, but that is what the planning scheme allows. And they've come in under that. And the only other consideration left, and you know, I thank Councillor Dutta for raising this, is one of the heritage and the streetscape. And we've heard, will it unreasonably dominate? You know, is it does it make a positive impact? Well, look, the counterfactual, I can tell you what doesn't make a positive impact, and that's the car parks and a red brick building sitting on the side of the road. There's a reason the existing site isn't heritage listed. It's frankly underused, underutilized. It's just a car park. And to argue that this thing is somehow way out of step with what's nearby, I could be sitting on the exact site they're proposing to build, and I could look up in one direction and see a building that's of the same height. I could look in the other direction and see a hotel that's, you know, up the hill further and even taller than what this one would be. And frankly, I don't see how anyone could sit on that site and say that what they're proposing to do would unreasonably impact it. I mean, the developer themselves thought that their previous one was fine to go, but they've obviously come back with an even more refined version, lowered it in height. And look, you know, I have genuine concern that a lot of the stock coming to market, that the size of the apartments is quite small, you know, but we're not getting, if you like, the developers competing on quality of product. But commercial considerations aren't ultimately what we're here to decide. We're here to decide, does it or does it not fit within this planning code? And it's very, very hard for me to sit here and say that it doesn't. I mean, if that thing somehow dominates the streetscape against, frankly, buildings that are sitting within 100 metres of it, I'm not sure what that clause even means. I mean, we're so lucky that the site itself actually sits halfway down the hill, just by virtue of where it is. it's not going to be nearly as big as it otherwise would be if it was on a flat ground. I mean, look, I view this and I see this as a developer who genuinely is actually trying to do a good thing here. They've taken on the commentary and the feedback they've received from people in the city and from us as a committee, and they've proposed to lower the building height to sit it within the 30 metres, notwithstanding the fact that there are multiple buildings nearby that are just as high and arguably dominate just even more. And to think that we're somehow going to ruin the streetscape. I mean, as I see it, what they've done is deliberately used a facade that will blend in. They've deliberately put, and I'm sure this would have come at building expense, they've deliberately put the higher part of the building set back in the middle of the block. I mean, I'm not staring at a proposal here that's trying to absolutely lower the cost of building and trying to maximise their space, if you like, and just build one big monolithic block. I see something where, I can look at it and go, I can tell they've made conscious design decisions to try and make this thing fit within the block, and fit within the aspect and fit within the street. And look, we'd all be really angry if we bought a block of land, went to build a house on it, and then just were told, oh no, look, your neighbours have got something very similar, but you all know you're not allowed to build that. And quite frankly, I think we do need to take into account the fact that there is, there is community expectation that these things can be allowed to be built and developed, but where they can fit within what's allowed. And it fits within what's allowed. We've heard it's not over the height of what's allowed there. And the only reason that we even have discretion is on the streetscape. And as I look around from the actual site, I genuinely struggle to find that what they're proposing to do is in any way different to what has been done around it. And I think they would have an expectation that what is good for one is good for all. So look, I would encourage members to support this.
30 seconds.
And, yeah, thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. I'll start with Councillor Coates's idea of community expectation. The community expectation is that we uphold the planning scheme. So we don't apply the pub test, the common sense test, because who are we asking for their common sense? We can't argue that this is going to increase the rates base. What we can argue is what's within the planning scheme. And the planning scheme tells us that there's 3 problems with this, and that the proposal does not meet the acceptable solution or performance criteria with respect to clause Part D 22.4.1, etc., with regard to its contribution to the streetscape, townscape, having regard to height, bulk, design of existing and proposed buildings. It also doesn't meet the historic heritage code, with regard to a number of things. And I think we've got to keep in mind that we are the keepers of the city and the upholders of the planning scheme. And if we just rubber stamp everything that comes before us, then we'd end up with a city that loses its value across time, a city that becomes a hodgepodge of buildings that don't fit into the streetscape. And we've had that in the past with the mistakes that have been made in Hobart. And we've got to be careful that we're not part of the history of Hobart, of the mistakes that get made, because we have a desire to promote developments at any cost that cost us our heritage and that don't represent the views and the values of the people of Hobart. So I'm very happy to say no to this proposal and to support the officer's recommendations, because we're not rubber stamps. We don't agree to every single development that comes before us. We use the planning scheme as our measure. We take our guidance from professional planners. So please don't use the idea that, we're here to just give a rubber stamp to everything. That's not why we were elected to council. We're elected here to represent the community and to uphold the planning scheme as much as we can. And sometimes we do vary our perceptions within the planning scheme, and we do vote against officers' recommendations. But on this occasion, it's been clearly indicated that this development is not suitable for this site. Somewhere else in the city may be, and we see time and again, we have very good developments, multi-residential tenancy developments on appropriate sites, in appropriate locations, at appropriate scale, that are very easily passed through the council, whereas this particular one doesn't meet the requirements of the planning scheme, and we should uphold recommendation of the council planners.
Just a point of clarification, Lord Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Baracus.
We all just got told that we shouldn't be making planning decisions based on the pub test, but that's not in line with how Councillor Harvey voted against the acceptable solutions. For
No, Alderman Baracus, that's really not a point of clarification.
I think it needed to be. I think it needed to be said.
Okay, Alderman Briscoe, you're next.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm sorry about that. I had to. My battery was getting low too, so I had to move my place of where I'm doing a Zoom meeting. Look, I don't know who brought in the pub test tonight, but it's not relevant. But I suppose we're judged out there in the community whether we've passed the pub test. But sadly, not sadly, I think Alderman Harvey's right. We've got to judge it on the planning scheme. I think if you look at attachment A on page 180 of our planning report, you can see the effect this is having on the heritage landscape. Look, all I can say is, so what if there are nearby buildings on the other side of the road or a block away? We're judging it on this historic block. Now, I don't think, I think a heritage officer said to us at the planning meeting on another item that people come to Hobart because of the heritage. And if we start putting St Kilda Road type developments on some of our most prominent heritage streets in Hobart, we're losing the charm of Hobart. I was hoping that we'd have a heights limit by now. Sadly, I'm still very sad about that we haven't got that. And so these developments wouldn't come before us, that we always have to agonise over. There's no one on the council who don't want development of Hobart to happen. We all want development in Hobart to happen. Unfortunately, we're still in a, as Councillor Harvey said, we're in a sweet spot. People want to still do developments in Hobart, and mainly because the prices of units and houses in Hobart are still going up. But I don't think we can trade off our heritage, and the effect on the heritage streetscape is significant. We saw that with the council fly-through that was shown at the planning meeting. It still has a significant effect. Now, I would be hoping that the developers don't walk away from this, but have another go bringing it down, probably with the height of nearby buildings in the same block. You know, there are some buildings of 5 stories, 4 or 5 stories in the same block that you don't notice. You do not notice from the Macquarie or Davey Street. So let's hope tonight we make a decision. We support our officers, and it's not a pub test or it's not common sense. I think we're here with a bigger purpose of protecting our heritage streetscapes. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Briscoe. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Look, I might just make a few comments before I ask Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up. I really endorse the comments by Councillor Dutta, Councillor Harvey and Alderman Briscoe. The Heritage Code is not just a sort of something that isn't really as significant as other elements of the planning scheme. It is a central part of the planning scheme. And it's really important to note that this precinct is identified as one of the most significant collection of colonial buildings in the country. This part of the Heritage Code, it is significant, and yes, there may have been incursions upon it, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do all that we can to prevent further decay of a really important streetscape. It's also really important to note that much of the CBD does not have heritage precincts. This is one of the few heritage precincts in the CBD, and it's there because of the significance of these buildings and these streetscapes. But there are plenty of other areas in the around the CBD, particularly, you know, for example, where our commercial precinct is, where there is no heritage precincts at all. So I'd really encourage people to think about in these particular precincts, we really do want those really excellent buildings that enhance that streetscape and don't detract from it. The court building there opposite St David's Park is a beautiful example of a modern building that really adds to the streetscape. And that's the kind of quality we want for this part of the CBD. There are other areas of the CBD that do not have this same very high, important bar in our planning scheme of the Heritage Code with a very significant precinct overlay. Okay, thank you. I'll ask Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up. Thanks.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I think there have been some significant points made in relation to this. It's the heritage streetscape. It's the quality of heritage buildings in this area. It's not. This is what we have before us. We have something that hasn't changed markedly in relation to those conditions or reasons for refusal that came to us 2 weeks ago. And any sort of delay is probably something that we don't want to do. So it was in some ways a frustrating exercise to send it back for to be deferred at council to be considered for some changes. The legal information or advice that we have, the external legal advice, suggests that these grounds for refusal are still strong, and whilst we all do want to see development of accommodation and mixes of accommodation in our city, it is unfortunately not, as Councillor Coates said, it's not about just putting anything up and being annoyed that you might have bought the land and not sort of read the instructions. So the reasons of refusal still remain.
Okay. Councillor Barakis had his hand up. Was that just we do need
it was to ask a question, Lord Mayor.
Yes. Alderman
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and through you to the director, just in regards to the comment of significant heritage. Was the Kodak House, the previous application, deemed by the officers to be of significant heritage?
Mr. Noy, did you want to answer that question? It's not really related to this item, but
well, it's the Kodak building has been listed under our heritage code, so it certainly has significance from a heritage perspective.
Oh, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just drawing the comparison between.
No, sorry, Alderman Barakis. It's not a time for comment. It's just a question and an answer. That's what questions are for. Okay, so we're going to go to vote now. I'll go around and see how you'd like to vote. Deputy Lord Mayor?
In favour.
Alderman Zerko? Alderman Zerko?
Lord Mayor.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry?
Against the motion.
Okay. Alderman Briscoe?
For the motion.
Alderman Thomas?
For.
Councillor Harvey?
For.
Alderman Barakis?
Against, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Dutta?
For.
We've lost Councillor Dutta, I think. Oh, no, we haven't.
For.
Oh, okay. Councillor Ewan?
For.
Councillor Sherlock?
For.
Councillor Coates?
Against, Lord Mayor.
And I'll vote for.
So, Lord Mayor, the motion for refusal is carried 8 votes to 3.
Okay. Moving on to item 9.4, Alderman Barakis is signing off momentarily. And Deputy Lord Mayor, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, Lord Mayor, this is not something that we're going to decide tonight, but it's suggesting that we should have specific delegation in relation to this item that's granted to City Plan.
Seconded by Alderman Briscoe.
Lord Mayor, there's a time constraint in relation, or possibly a time constraint in relation to this application for new buildings for 31 multiple dwellings on Burnett Street. and it's really the delegation so that it doesn't fall out of time, so that this can be considered by the planning committee in lieu of council making that decision.
Okay, any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll just see if anyone would like to vote against this delegation. Please raise your hand. Okay, so there's no votes against. That's passed unanimously. Okay, we can ask.
Before we get to the next item, can I have it recorded that I couldn't make that vote, but I would have voted against the motion in relation to 45 Elizabeth Street?
General Manager, what's the protocol with that?
Well, Lord Mayor, the Deputy wasn't present during the item for a technical reason, so we'll certainly record in the minutes that the Deputy didn't vote for a technical reason. And I think this tape, if requested by someone, would be evidence of the Deputy's intention if she had voted.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, we could just recommit the item to just re-vote very quickly, but if that's possible. We've done it in the past, and this was an obvious technical issue, so to be absolutely recorded that people's vote is recorded as a vote. Is that possible, in a minute?
Lord Mayor, can I, sorry to interrupt, Lord Mayor, my strong recommendation would be against doing that. Normally when planning items are decided, they are decided, and council is unable to go back and re-decide them or re-vote on them. My view would be as well, Lord Mayor, it was I think from memory, it was a 10-0 vote, and I don't think there's a need, given that the Deputy's views are recorded on this tape, and we'll record it in the minutes that she had a technical issue in voting.
Okay.
Thank you for that, General Manager.
Thanks, General Manager. All right, we're moving on now to the Community Culture and Events Committee, and I will pass over to Councillor Sherlock.
Yes, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Before I put the motion, I'll just give a brief overview of the City of Hobart Grants Program. So the program offers advantages for officers and recipients, creating an ongoing and fixed financial relationship with community events that helps define the calendar of events for Hobart. However, it is not consistently applied, and the mechanism to invite new entrants is not clearly articulated, creating an opportunity to review the program to establish whether it remains fit for purpose. A review of all events, grant streams is proposed, with officers engaging with stakeholders to consult on any considerations that could be included in a future grants program offered by the City of Hobart, and to ensure the program is fair and strategic in its objectives. City partnership agreements expire in June 2022, so any proposed change to this or any of the grants would need to be in place well before this expiry date to give all stakeholders sufficient time to plan accordingly. This would involve a further report to the council, and it is not proposed to hold back any grants in the 2020-21 financial year. And I'd just like to move the item. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thanks, and that's been seconded by Councillor Harvey. Any discussion? No one wants to speak to this. Would anyone like to vote against this item? No votes against, so that's passed unanimously. Item 11, Councillor Sherlock.
Yes, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. So this is the housing and homelessness strategy. It's a review. It is proposed that council officers undertake further targeted engagement on the development of a draft affordable housing and homelessness commitment with relevant government agencies, housing and homelessness sector, Greater Hobart Homelessness Alliance, the Community Sector Reference Group, the Housing with Dignity Reference Group, and internal staff across the organisation. This engagement would take place over November and December 2020. It is further proposed that in early 2021, an elected member workshop be held to discuss the draft document prior to it being presented to the council, seeking approval to release the draft commitment for broad public comment. I just put the item. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Ewan. Any discussion? No discussion. Any votes against this item? That's passed unanimously. Item 12.
Yes, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. So most elected members were present at the special Community Culture and Events Committee, but just a brief overview, it is proposed that the grant program be redirected where it can provide the most benefit, and this has been identified as vulnerable and disadvantaged people in the community who are in most need during the festive season, and especially this year due to the effects of COVID-19. And therefore, with this in mind, $1,000 grants would be made available to charitable organisations and groups. The total grant pool would not change and would remain at $10,000. However, the maximum allowable amount for each grant awarded would be raised from $750 to $1,000. And there are two recommendations: that the Community Christmas Activation Quick Response Grant is suspended in 2020, with the available $10,000 grant pool being diverted to the festive season charitable quick response grant. And number two, that this festive season charitable quick response grant would commence from the 13th of November 2020, and for projects that are delivered in the period from 1st to the 31st of December 2020. And I'll just put the item. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. That's seconded by Councillor Ewan. Would anyone like to speak to this? No discussion. Would anyone like to vote against it? No votes against. That's passed unanimously. I'll move on to item 13. Invite Alderman Thomas to introduce this item.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'll simply put the item that's on the books.
Seconded by Councillor Ewan.
That's coming out of closed, Lord Mayor, just to record in the open the decision of the closed council.
Okay, anyone vote? Would anyone like to speak to that? No. Would anyone like to vote against that item? No votes against. That is passed unanimously. Item 14, Alderman Thomas.
Yes, thanks, Lord Mayor. Now, this matter went to a special before council. I'm not quite sure whether Grant's going to put up the recommendation or where it's certainly the recommendation of committee that went to the committee was actually went through unanimously. While we just check that out, maybe the director, Mr. Short, can help us there, where the actual motion is.
Lord Mayor, through you, I think I don't have that. Whether council support are able to put that up on the screen. My apologies, Lord Mayor.
Have we got a copy of the motion? I can't remember what it was. Or could someone read it, perhaps, if it's not too long?
Through you, Lord Mayor, we do have a copy. If you can just bear with us for a moment. We are just accessing it now to put it up. Thank you.
Okay.
Don't want it to be the blind leading the blind, Lord Mayor.
But Alderman Thomas, you said it was unchanged from the recommendation.
That is correct, Councillor Harvey. It was there was a lot of work done between the ordinary meeting of the committee and the special at the suggestion of Alderman Zuko. It's come back a much better document. It does actually remove from consideration a paper version at this point in time. But it continues the idea of rolling this out fairly quickly. So it's a further relief to business, and it was unanimously supported at committee.
So, question through you, Lord Mayor. So you want to proceed? You're recommending proceeding with a paper version for $17,000?
No, that's not correct. Sorry, the paper version was seen as having a number of considerations which appear in the papers, including issues in relation to COVID, issues in relation to processing, additional quite an additional cost in terms, as you just said, averted to in terms of actually rolling it out as a paper version, but a consideration for that at a later point, potentially, while we see how the first iteration in an electronic form operates. So at this stage, businesses will actually nominate under an expression of interest to be involved. And at this point, there is a limited number. I think the director can correct me. Around 75 businesses can be involved at this point. It's catering and hospitality businesses. It may stay in that vein, or it may be changed later on, depending on how successful this is.
Okay, here we go. Here's the actual motion. So there's two parts, and it's the endorsement of the campaign. Sorry, Alderman Thomas, did you want to say anything further? We can just read it.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
So we'll just leave it up there just for a moment, because it is a reasonably significant budget decision. Okay, thank you. I think that's clear now to everyone. So was the seconder for this Councillor Ewan? I think you had your hand up. Yes. All right. Would anyone like to speak on this item? No? Okay. Would anyone like to vote against the proposal? No raised hands. Okay, that's passed unanimously. Now we'll move on to our supplementary item. We have a report from the General Manager on the meetings. Item 16, General Manager. Moved by moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Alderman Briscoe. General Manager, would you like to vote? Would you like to speak on this?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate that. Lord Mayor, following the Council's decision to return to physical meetings, a number of options have been assessed to accommodate that decision. I suppose the biggest challenge, Lord Mayor, was finding a location that provided for public attendance while also adhering to the health recommendations of 1.5 metre physical distancing and 1 person per 2 square metres. The only option when you are unsure of attendance numbers, Lord Mayor, is the Town Hall ballroom. However, as elected members I'm sure are aware, there are serious acoustic challenges in this room, which only can be resolved through the installation of audio equipment. There was also the added expense to set up temporary capacity to audio stream the meetings, which has been a standard practice for council meetings for a number of years now, Lord Mayor. Officer assessment determined that the best option is to return to the council chamber and utilise the existing equipment, as physical distancing will be required to ensure the health and safety of all people attending, Lord Mayor. The capacity of the chamber will be limited and seating configured appropriately. The public gallery will be accommodated in the Lady Osborne room with live screening and audio provided to that room, Lord Mayor. As a result of the reduced capacity, the recommendation includes a relatively nominal investment in equipment to continue the video streaming meetings utilising the existing hardware in the chamber. Video streaming would provide a better experience than the overflow gallery proposed in the report for the Lady Osborne room, as I mentioned earlier, or for the public to continue to view the meetings remotely rather than attending in person, Lord Mayor. Finally, Lord Mayor, as well as the report alludes to as well, we will be putting a standard item on committees for the November round of meetings for the committees to determine whether or not they want to return to physical meetings or continue to meet on Zoom. So that'll start this round of meetings, Lord Mayor. So, Lord Mayor, with those introductory remarks, I do commend the officer recommendation to you.
Okay, Alderman Briscoe, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question of the General Manager, if that's okay. So it's good, well, comment first. It's good, General Manager, that the council chamber will return for meetings in the council chamber. Does that mean that the historic chamber furniture itself will be moved, or will we have that pathetic, sorry, my editorial comment, substandard tables for those junior aldermen and councillors?
General Manager?
I'm hoping, Lord Mayor, that there'll be minimal requirement to move furniture around. But look, I might have to take that question on notice, Lord Mayor. When we physically start having to accommodate the 1.5 distance, there might be a need to move some of the furniture around. So look, maybe I could take that question on notice, Lord Mayor, and let you know through a memo once we've made a final decision on the configuration.
Thank you, General Manager. I'm hoping that I think the idea of video streaming, I know a number of us wanted it over a number of years, and the idea, you know, through this year, we have got used to being electronic presence via YouTube. We're used to seeing in most cases, let's say in my case, a very aging face, so it doesn't worry me. But look, I think in person is going to return where we can have far better meetings than whilst we have coped. I still think we lost a lot by going to these Zoom meetings. Presumably, there are still people watching us at the moment. Perhaps a final question and final comment. How many people are watching via the YouTube channel at the moment?
I'm not sure, Craig, if our administrator can advise us, Lord Mayor. I don't have that data in front of me, but our administrator may.
Yes, I can. 24 at the moment.
Thank you for that, and hello out there to those 24 people who are watching us.
Okay, Alderman Brackus.
Thank you, Chair. And just in regards to, I'll follow on from Alderman Briscoe in regards to the live streaming, just to confirm, is that going to be, is the part 2 of the recommendation about the live streaming, is that just in regard to during this sort of period, or is this a permanent move to live streaming the council meetings?
General Manager?
Well, initially, Lord Mayor, it's during this period, but I think we'd like to have a conversation with the council about continuing to live stream. I think we've been very happy. I'm sure the elected members have been very happy, Lord Mayor, with the way that the live streaming has gone. So we'd like to continue it, but I think we'd like to have that conversation with the council.
Thank you for that. And look, I do agree. I think it's I think it's shown that it makes it a bit more accessible to those that are wanting to tune in or wanting to listen and watch what's going on. And I will note that I think Clarence has been live streaming their meetings during this period. I'm not sure what they were doing before, but I know they do live stream inside their chamber. So it makes it that much easier, I think, for people to sort of carry on with what's going on in the council. In regards to, look, I think, you know, Zoom has undoubtedly been a lifesaver for us as a council and many other councils during 2020, and it has allowed us to keep sitting. I think now, as we do start to move as a state towards some form of normality, whatever that is these days, I do think that we, you know, for all of the convenience of Zoom, we do lose that human factor of council. And I think we do lose some of that legitimacy of actually sitting in the chamber and making the decisions and all being in that same room. And I'll note that, you know, Clarence and Kingborough and even the state parliament are able to sit in person. So I think it is high time that we did so as well, albeit in a way that's safe. So I'd welcome this, and I would also lend my voice to calling for us to be, you know, implementing the live video streaming, should we be able to do it practically, which I'm sure we are able to do. So look, I'll commend this, and I'll look forward to seeing everybody in person next meeting, hopefully.
Thank you. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question through you. With regards to beginning our physical meeting on the 23rd of November, if an elected member is not able to make it, will there be an option to use Zoom?
General Manager.
Lord Mayor, the short answer to that question is legally and technically the answer to that question is yes. I'm aware that other councils around Tasmania under the COVID order do have a hybrid model where elected members can Zoom in or use platforms to participate in the meeting. So I think legally and technically the answer is yes. I don't see any reason why we would be able to exclude that would obviously not be the case, Lord Mayor, once the COVID order that we're conducting these meetings under expired.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? No further discussion. If you just pop your hand down maybe, or thank you. Alderman Briscoe, thank you. Would anyone like to vote against this recommendation? So there's no votes against, that's passed unanimously. Moving on now to our second supplementary item, also a special report from the General Manager. General Manager, would you like to introduce this item? Moved by Councillor Sherlock, seconded by Councillor Dutta. Would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, this report is seeking endorsement of the professional officer's view on the use of our corporate social media platforms, including Facebook. Increasingly, Lord Mayor, cities are using social media in preference to more traditional print and TV media. And we have attached to my report examples where this occurs in other councils across the country. And just to name a couple, with Launceston, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Ballarat are on there as examples. Invariably, Lord Mayor, social media platforms rely on people and they are using videos as a means of communicating their message to their communities. It's not unreasonable, therefore, Lord Mayor, as the spokesperson of the council, and indeed with that you participate in those videos, and indeed with appropriate consent, council staff are used to communicate those messages as well. It's also proposed in the report, Lord Mayor, that with your delegation under the powers you have under the Act, that other elected members as well, Lord Mayor, could participate in those posts. It's also proposed, Lord Mayor, I think this is important, that the information that is conveyed by yourself and or your delegate on the social media platforms complies with the Council's social media policy, which was adopted by the Council last year in October, and is also conveying factual information to our community. So, Lord Mayor, I do think it's important that we recognise that this way of communicating with our community is the contemporary way of getting information out. And I'm hoping tonight, Lord Mayor, that the recommendations that we've put before you in this report will be endorsed by the Council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Thomas.
Yeah, look, I appreciate the commentary and the discourse by the General Manager. Item 3 implicitly implies or sort of acknowledges that the elected representatives will also have, in accordance with their appropriate delegation, the right to be in those columns on social media and whichever form it takes. I think it's important, and I think you'll agree, Lord Mayor, that there be an express provision there, just to clarify that social media being no different to other media, in reality, that there will be many occasions where a chair or an authorised party will make a social media comment on their own, and of course it will need to be factual in all respects, the same as anything that you say as the chief spokesperson. But I think if we have that in there, it acknowledges the important role that all elected officials have, and although it's certainly acknowledged in item 3, I think it should be expressed, and I think it would be appropriate to have it as a separate clause, or number 3 strengthened, please.
So Alderman Thomas, Alderman General Manager, I think, was thinking about the, oh no, so did you want to give me a form of words, Alderman Thomas? So it's...
I think then in item 1, the Lord Mayor is legislative spokesperson for the council or her delegate or her delegated as I'm going to say here, as provided for, because you've already given delegations as part of the early administration. So as long as those earlier delegations are clearly expressed in item 1, then all the delegations that are in place now remain in this form as in the other form. And to do anything else would be silly, because it would actually depreciate those earlier announcements, which I understand have been working well. So it's just a question of saying the Lord Mayor is legislative spokesperson for the council, and any delegated elected official will feature. So the Lord Mayor is legislative spokesperson for the council or any delegated elected official.
Okay.
I think that will cover it and make it quite clear.
That will need an amendment, Lord Mayor.
I'm happy to
Okay,
put
so
the
that's an amendment from Alderman Thomas. I need a seconder for that. Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, Alderman Briscoe, yep.
No, I'd like to speak too, if that's possible.
Sure. Alderman Thomas, have you got anything further on your amendment?
I'm happy that that fits into the reality. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Briscoe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, it is a Facebook and Facebook posts and media generally obviously evolving, and the traditional media are probably moving away from stories as such. There are obviously a lot of pros and cons, for example, to have the Lord Mayor of the Day being the only person on our social media. And I think Alderman Thomas did indicate in a way saying previous delegations should hold. And obviously I've been watching the corporate page evolve. Remember, the city set it up as an answer to Batman, whoever Batman was, and his fake, if I'm allowed to use that word fake anymore, fake Facebook page, which kept the city entertained, but also confused people who thought it was the official page. And now Batman has floated away somewhere, and his corporate, his so-called fake page is gone. Traditionally, we've tried to not make Hobart City Council a one-person band. And I remember when we set up corporate news, the Capital City News, we had a policy understanding that the Lord Mayor of the Day wasn't going to be featured in any of the editorial pieces in that Capital City News, which thankfully since then it has been a vehicle of conveying decisions of the city or achievements of the city without an overlay of politics. You may recall a time in Glenorchy where every single page of their newspaper was full of smiling photographs of the mayor, and I know some more minor councils still do that. But if we are going to work as a team, we can't just have one person who rightly or wrongly, will display the decisions of the city and presumably get some political mileage out of it. All I can say is the occasional use by the Lord Mayor of a video, I think, fine on social media, but I think if we go to our City of Hobart corporate page, I'm not going to share anyone who's talking is an elected member. I'll share the achievements or the decisions the city has made, but I'm not going to share anyone's, Lord Mayor or anyone else, any other elected member on my Facebook community. So just as probably a closing comment, we've got to be very careful, the Lord Mayor of the Day, the language that could be used in any deciding which stories go up as a video comment. For example, I've noticed the ones that have gone up recently use the word we, not the word Hobart City Council has decided. Now we, when I hear the we indicated by an individual, I always think of the royal we, the Queen Victoria. We have decided. So I hope that the corporate communications people in Hobart, in City of Hobart, will use the word Hobart City Council decided when they're writing the scripts for various commenters on our Facebook page. I also have noticed that the trolls are out in force when there is individual elected alderman featured in a video. And that's a political risk for the elected member. Noticed that most recently some comments that were made on some stories which indicated a lot of interest when elected members, and then the trolls come out, and then the discussion is not civil. So all I can say is, all right, I'm going to vote for this, but I'll be monitoring it, I'll be monitoring it to see whether it conveys a one-person ban when we're 12 people, that each of us have only one vote. We make decisions, and although the Lord Mayor of the day is the spokesperson, we've got to be careful if we're going to encourage, as we have done in previous Lord Mayors, encourage that teamwork with one notable section of a previous Lord Mayor, a man who operates, I think, in another sphere now. We've got to be careful.
30 seconds, Alderman.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Zuko.
Yes, firstly, a question through you to the General Manager. General Manager, can you recall the policy that was put in place when the Capital City News come before, and the reasons why the council adopted that policy?
The General Manager.
I'm racking my brain, Lord Mayor, to try and answer that question. I can't recall what the policy was that was put in place when we adopted the Capital City News, but maybe Alderman Zuko could remind me.
Yes, look, I'll remind everybody that the policy that was put in place at the time was the Capital City News was intended to promote the city and its decisions, and not any one or 12 elected members other than our photo being on the front of it. I am not going to support this policy, nor am I going to support Alderman Thomas's amendment, and I'll speak to Alderman Thomas's amendment in a moment. The reason why is I fully accept, and I've always accepted, that the Lord Mayor of the capital city is the spokesperson for the city. I've never had an issue with that. What I have an issue with is when we're using a platform which has been paid for and monitored and used by the ratepayers of Hobart. Whether or not we want to believe it or not, that there is some sort of cost associated with maintaining that Facebook page by our staff. Not only that, I find it absolutely difficult that potentially, if a staff member agrees, they can go online with one of the elected members, and I've never ever supported that nor agree to that. I think it's absolutely inappropriate that any staff member is associated with any of the elected members, and or in particular the Lord Mayor. I have no problem in the Hobart City Council using its social media page to promote council decisions. I have no problem with promoting what we do and what we don't do in Hobart. But I feel very, very concerned with what Alderman Thomas is proposing as well, in respect of it being shared out. There are actually 12 elected members in the city of Hobart and one spokesperson, which is the Lord Mayor. During my time under the Valentine regime, we developed through Councillor, the former Lord Mayor, a Lord Mayor's procedure in respect of how elected members would represent the Lord Mayor. Since this council's been elected, I've only been asked to represent the Lord Mayor on one occasion, and that was at the last moment. But there's been quite a number of elected members represent the Lord Mayor, and I find it absolutely extraordinary that that there are elected members who represent the council at, say, places like the Australian Italian Club, in which I'm a president there, and I've never been asked to represent the Lord Mayor at that club. It really is mind-boggling. That, to my point of view, does not demonstrate teamwork. Now, if we're going to seriously talk about teamwork here, maybe what we should be doing is saying, okay, each elected member has the same amount of time to use on the social media platform. Now, if that is the case, that means that each and every elected member has the time to use in a very much similar time frame, but on the basis that we are promoting the city and the decisions we make. Now, I find this use of council resources for the promotion of any elected member, or one or two or three or half a dozen elected members, as absolutely inappropriate. Now, as I'm saying to you, the question I want to put to a number of elected members: what if the situation was reversed, that we had a right-wing Lord Mayor in place and the council was right-wing? The left wing of the council would have concerns. Now, if we are truly wanting to be a team and operate as a team and bring every team member into play, then each and every elected member should be treated equally. And I've got to say, in the time since the last election, these elected members on this council are not in any way treated equally. So what is this platform for? Is this platform for the promotion of the Lord Mayor, whoever the Lord Mayor is, or is this
of other elected representatives not being treated equally? Because I'm unaware of any. I think the Lord Mayor is elected as a spokesperson of council as a whole. So I'm just interested to hear if there are any examples that he can point to.
Any examples?
I think Alderman.
Lord Mayor, I don't think that's a point of order. Okay.
I don't think it's a point of order. It is Alderman Zuko's opinion. I'm just, but I. If you would just continue, Alderman Zuko, I'm not sure how much time you've got left.
And I'll just go on to what Alderman Thomas is referring to, that other elected members also have an opportunity. As I've already stated, since the October 2018 election, I've been asked to represent the Lord Mayor on one occasion, and that was at the last moment because someone couldn't attend. That is not being fair across the board. I really don't care whether I represent the Lord Mayor or not, but the policy that was put in place under the Valentine regime, where there was a process for all elected members to represent the Lord Mayor on a rotation, has not been adopted by this Lord Mayor, was adopted by the previous Lord Mayor and other Lord Mayors. I just find that extraordinary that all of us are not treated equally. And I'll say this. I have not been treated equally because I wasn't even asked to participate. Sorry? I was not given 30 seconds.
Point of order.
I was not given 30 seconds.
Yes, you were. I gave you 30 seconds, Alderman Zuko.
Right, fair enough. Shut me down again, Lord Mayor. Good luck.
So a point of order. I don't think we need that, Councillor Sherlock, because Alderman Zuko has finished his contribution. Alderman Barakis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I suppose just a couple of questions first to the General Manager. Part one of that motion, and I get where sort of what we're looking at doing here. Does that specify? Would that preclude, the Lord Mayor or delegate in using the page for self-promotion? I get that it's only intended to be used for promoting council policy. I just want to make sure that this isn't. Does the wording of this motion preclude misuse of the page, I suppose, is the question I've got.
Look, thank you for that question, Lord Mayor. I would say that it does. Like, we've been pretty clear in preparing the motion tonight that we wanted to make sure that any information that was communicated through this corporate platform was factual. So it's not designed to be for grandstanding or political messaging. It's just to be factual. And I would say factual means things like communicating council decisions, those sorts of things. So look, I would strongly hope, Lord Mayor, that it's been made pretty clear that this corporate Facebook site is not for communicating political messages.
Thank you for that, General Manager. Look, I'm not 100% sure where I sit on this one as yet. I'm willing to continue to listen to debate. I would just suggest that in the issue of tidiness more than anything else, that's as a small amendment. I don't think it's a major change, and I hope it doesn't change the intent of the motion. But part 3 of the recommendation does specify, elected and member engagement with the City of Hobart's corporate social media accounts. Part 1 just sort of refers to social media in general, and I think it'd be neater perhaps if part 1 actually did mention the City of Hobart's corporate media accounts, because I wouldn't want it to be implying any suggestion as to how elected members use their own social media pages. So I'd put that as just in the interest of tidiness, that part 1 be amended to say to read that the Lord Mayor as legislated spokesman for the council, or I think I'm not sure if Alderman Thomas would prefer to include it in his amendment if it makes it easier, but so, it says will feature in the City of Hobart's corporate social media accounts to report on decisions, etc. I just think it makes it a bit tighter and a bit more clear as to what the intent is.
Great.
Alderman Thomas, you happy to include the insertion of those words, City of Hobart's corporate social media? Okay.
Thank you for that, Alderman. Am I
second the Lord Mayor?
No, I think Alderman Thomas is. Oh, the seconder was Alderman Briscoe. You happy with that addition?
Yes, I am.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I'm not, like I said, I'm still not convinced either way on this. I think, whilst on one hand the social media page is to be used for the city to communicate our council policies to the public, and obviously to respond to issues and events as they pop up. And it is the role of the Lord Mayor and delegated elected members to represent the council. I suppose I would, whether or not this passed or fails tonight, I would encourage that there is some sort of caution exercised in that, whilst the use of Facebook is, and the use of the official Facebook page is one thing, if it is run, managed, and paid for by the ratepayer, it is only used for that specific purpose. And I wouldn't like to see any situations where the Facebook page is used in the lead up to a vote to promote something that isn't yet council policy, or as any sort of for self promotion. But it has been used by other councils the right way as well. So it's not so much me saying yes or no to it, just hoping that there would be that kind of level of caution and professionalism applied to it, that it is not misused. I think there is that sort of risk that it could be misused, and that's not necessarily applying any or making any allegations to anyone in specific. Just making that comment in regards to the comments made by Alderman Zerko. I'm not going to get into the topic of fairness or not. I'll just reflect that I don't remember the last time I was invited to represent the Lord Mayor at an event. I think that was quite a while ago, but I'll leave it there.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
I think this has been a really timely discussion. We are living in this century, and social media is obviously a big component of how we get messages out. So it's like being dragged into the Enlightenment, really, with this policy, and it's probably a long time coming. I think whilst that may be the case, those things that have been brought up, which is relating to the past history of having the person who is the spokesperson for the council, i.e. the Lord Mayor in most situations, it's really incumbent and obviously has been a bone of contention previously for other elected members in relation to this being a so-called self-promotional tool. Now, I think this motion has a lot of checks and balances, and I think no doubt the Lord Mayor has heard this loud and clear, the concerns that have been raised, but I have no doubt that the Lord Mayor provides a really professional approach to getting the message across of council. And anybody who is delegated, we would expect them to do the same. So it's a timely motion. I thank the general manager and the various officers who have put this together and put it together thoughtfully, because it is obviously something that concerns a number of the elected members, not all of us probably, but no doubt with Alderman Thomas's amendment, this will be appropriately handled.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I think we all agree and we all understand that the Lord Mayor speaks to the media through TV, radio interviews, through newspaper interviews. But you're also left in the situation where the media report what they want to report, and we don't have control over the content or the quotes or whatever's used with regard to the council. We also know, I think we all realise and understand that social media is increasingly the medium that people use to get their information. And by the Lord Mayor, as the representative of the council using social media, she can accurately describe what the outcomes of the council has been. So as the General Manager has said, this will be factual information. It won't be opinion of the Lord Mayor. It'll be the factual decisions of the council that will be represented in the social media segments or footage that the Lord Mayor uses. And if there's, as I see this, if there's chairmen of committee that are also, needing to comment on things, they can also present the facts of certain decisions within their committees. I don't see this as a platform for self-promotion, but I see this as a platform to represent accurately the decisions of council. And we saw a decision recently in the paper today talking about our procurement policy that we're only going to buy things that were available in Hobart. The misrepresentation there, that we've now had to clarify that it's been misrepresented by a number of media outlets. So I think this is a really valuable tool for the council to accurately portray the decisions made by the council. Whether the Lord Mayor agrees or disagrees with the decision that's been made is irrelevant, because as Alderman Valentine used to always do, he always represented the council whether he agreed or disagreed with the decision that was made. And that's the important fact here. I expect the Lord Mayor, and I have no doubt that they will represent the council accurately on the decisions that we as the councillors make. So I don't need any amendments to this motion as it is before us, because I'm quite comfortable and confident that what we've got is accurate and describes what will happen. With regard to Alderman Thomas's amendment, I don't think we really need to clarify. I think it's quite obvious that the Lord Mayor and her delegate, or her delegate, so you don't have a Lord Mayor and her delegate. We don't want to have the two people representing council. I'm happy with just the Lord Mayor, and if the Lord Mayor is unavailable, or if there's a need for the chair to do the communications, then I'm happy with that. But I don't think we need to have two people necessarily all the time. It may be the case. So I'm still undecided whether I'll support the amendment. I'll need to hear it again, but I'm confident that this is a good decision. Other councils are doing the same thing. It gives us an opportunity to be very accurate with how we describe the outcomes of council.
Okay, Councillor Sherlock.
Yes, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Look, I would like to, totally agree with Councillor Harvey's comments. I read this earlier on today, and I thought to myself, perhaps to try and account for potential issues that may come up, I thought I would go through the corporate page, and I went back about 6 months back, and I don't know if anybody else has decided to do an audit of the corporate Facebook account, but I went back as far as May and a little bit before that, and from those 6 months that nowhere does the Lord Mayor feature by herself. There is actually, all there is events, comedy shows, grants funding, talking about the mountain, the market, sports grounds are closed, centre updates, precinct updates. And I'm somewhat bemused by some of the comments that were actually made, to be honest. I think that it actually shows that the fact that we actually are all working as a team. There's no point in time where I've actually seen something come up that's going to be voted on during council and it's been put there. I don't see anybody going on there and promoting themselves. Of course, we all have our own Facebook accounts, and I'm sure many of us actually use that and not the corporate page. So yes, like I just reiterated before, I'm really bemused by some of the comments. It's just, some of them were really irrelevant. Some of them were just, I don't know why they were actually said, probably because it was made at a time that I wasn't actually on council, and perhaps there's some history related to a few of the comments made, but in no way do they actually legitimate some of the potential issues that were raised when you actually do an audit of the Facebook page itself. So I will be supporting the recommendations of the officers. And while I do humbly, totally understand what Alderman Thomas is saying, his words delegated elected official, I think that already is said there, as Councillor Harvey pointed out, and I do thank everybody for their comments. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I've got Alderman Zuka, you've got a question?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I have a question. Would you like me to ask a question?
Yes.
Through you to the General Manager, can you please advise me as to who's been managing the Facebook account for the past 6 months?
General Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. The Facebook site is managed by one of our communication officers, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dutta, you've got your...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to observe a lot of points. Firstly, listening to this discussion, it appears, firstly, that it's about diversity of the mode and the medium of communication. And the fact that we are living in a technological age, it is advisable, and I think it's worth our while to use the Facebook page and the corporate page that we have. So I would quite support this, because we need to move with the time because of the diversity of the nature that we have in the medium and mode of communication. Secondly, it is my understanding, and I stand to be corrected here, that the Lord Mayor, when she goes either on the Tuesday morning to speak on ABC Radio, she represents the decisions made by the council and not her own views. And the many times that I've heard her speak, I've heard her representing the majority vote or the decision that was made by the council. And for me, this point I'm making, that it is important for us to disseminate this information. It's not the minority decision, but it's a democracy where we made the decision and she expresses or disseminates the decision of the council and not her own view. Thirdly, the third point I am observing here is about the delegated responsibility. Now, according to the Act, the Lord Mayor is the spokesperson, and I take that as the power given to her. Hence, to extend this, if it is delegated to an elected member, I don't see any problems with it. And it is quite in order for that to happen. And finally, again, I have also checked the corporate page, and I haven't found any politicization of this. And the moment I see this, I will jump on Lord Mayor or anybody else, and I would support the others that it is being politicized. At this point in time, I don't see it, and therefore I will totally support this. It will give us clarity as to where we're going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think there was a request to reread Alderman Thomas's motion. Alderman Thomas's amendment. Would someone be able to do that?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I can do that. The amendment is to clause 1, which has it reading, the Lord Mayor as legislated spokesperson for the council or her delegated elected officials will feature in social media content on the City of Hobart corporate Facebook site to report on decisions of the council.
Lord Mayor, there was also I'm quite happy to accept in Alderman Barakas's extra words that he provided.
I think that's in there, Alderman Thomas. That's the addition of the City of Hobart's corporate social media. Okay, I think it was social media broadly rather than Facebook specifically.
Correct. It wasn't just a Facebook page because
yeah, I think the original motion talks about social media. Okay, so I'll put the Alderman Thomas's amendment and see if anyone would like to vote against that amendment. So there's no hands raised. And so now I'll put the motion as a...
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Sorry, Lord Mayor. I didn't realise. I thought you were going to go around and call.
So Alderman Zuko, you're voting against Alderman Thomas's amendment.
Correct.
So we've got one vote against. And now on the substantive motion, would anyone like to vote against the substantive motion? So that's been Alderman Zuko and Alderman Barakas are voting against that. Okay. General Manager?
So, Lord Mayor, it's carried 9 votes to 2 with the amendment incorporated.
Great. All right. Now we're moving on to the closed portion. I need someone to move that we move into the closed. Alderman Deputy Lord Mayor's moving into the closed, seconded by Alderman Barakas. Anyone against moving into the closed? There's no hands up, so that's unanimous.